All right, guys, welcome back to another video. This video is a subscriber shout out or a commentator shout out. This is essentially what I do occasionally. I read through my comments. I try to get to all of them. I can't read all of them, but there are some that just stand out to me the most, and there are probably other ones that are great as well. But I'm picking the one that actually resonated with me at the time that I read it, and occasionally I'll pick out a commenter or a subscriber who leaves a comment that says something that's really intriguing to me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to pick you because you agree with me. You can actually say something that challenges me. And like I told you guys before, it's not about always getting with people that agree with you. The likelihood of you actually growing as an individual is stymied, it's stifled if you're always seeking people who always agree with you. It's always clever to delve into the realm of people who do not agree with you, so it can force you to kind of look back at your thoughts and look back at your comments and look back at your worldview or your perceptions to see, hey, is there something that I should consider from this person that's going against what I'm saying? Is there a way that I can improve? And that's one thing that I like about being a critical thinker. Critical thinkers know how to respectfully disagree, all right, without going on profanity rants. And critical thinkers are also able to take critique as well. It doesn't feel good, of course. We don't sit there saying critique me, and we're okay with it. We often like to hear good things, but there needs to be a balance in this world we live in. If you're getting over an overwhelmingly amount of positive messages, let's say you're getting like 90 positive messages and only 10 negative messages, then you're not doing your job. It needs to be equal. You need 50-50 at best. And I would argue, say you need more negative than you do positive, because it's the negative that pushes us to be better. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so let me get down to it. This subscriber or the commentator, I don't necessarily know if he's a subscriber or not, but he goes by the name of At Flight. All right, this is what he said. And this comment was based upon my response to Jason Whitlock's response to Stephen A. Smith. I know that kind of sounds complicated, but I was responding to Jason Whitlock's response to Stephen A. Smith's response of Jason Whitlock's initial response when Jason Whitlock had the questions about, certain things in the memoir of the book that Stephen A. Smith wrote, certain things didn't line up. So Jason Whitlock had some questions. So I'm going to read this here. It says from At Flight, he says, I always find it interesting when I hear people in general use the term out of character. All right. Now, when he says out of character, he puts that in quotation marks. He's referring to me because in my video, I said that Stephen A. Smith was acting out of character. All right. And this is what At Flight goes on to say. He says he finds it interesting when people use the term out of character. He says, in this case with Stephen A. Smith, his response is his actual character, very much like the guy on television and radio, minus the swearing. He has a point there. He has a point. He does have a point because I've seen him get emotional on his show. He's just not using profane language, but in this case, he did use profanity. So this is why I kept on reading, because initially when I heard the comments say, he says about using the term out of character, I thought that this guy was going to be going against what I said. But I kept on reading it anyway because I could have shut it off and said, man, I don't want to listen to this guy. But that's why it's always important that we read comments from people that don't agree with us. Or even in real life situations, when you're talking to somebody and they say something that you do not agree with, hear them out. Be intentional and listen all the way through and wait till they finish their thought. And that's why when you read comments, you have no choice but to read out the whole thought, because you're not in a one-on-one interpersonal setting where you guys can go back and forth. This is me shutting off my mind to fully give the content or the commentary that At Flight wrote all the attention that it needs. So I couldn't cut him off. When he said the comment about, out of character stuff, initially that draws an impulse from us. We're like, what do you mean? No, just wait, read it through, and then, you can get a better idea of how to respond. So he says that that this is the way that Stephen A. Smith always acts on television, minus the swearing. He goes on to say, I agree with this post. He is one of only a few to really take a deep look to both. No, I guess he's talking about me. That I'm one of the few to really take a deep look to both guys, Whitlock and Smith's comments and responses. Stephen A. Smith exposed himself as not being an articulate wordsmith as he loves to say he is by using the same big words to describe simple things on his take on sports, etc. He constantly shows his insecurity by how he talks to people and how he responded to criticism of his book. And that's true. I mean, if someone criticizes your book, like I said on my response, just keep it in the book. Don't get outside the book and get personal. And I think, At Flight has a very, very great point here. All right. His entire rant, all he did was contradict himself by stating that he doesn't criticize or comment on any athlete's personal life or anything that's not sports related news. Then he says his own personal life is private. Well, an autobiography from a popular famous person has himself, and trust me, is always the first person to remind his audience of his status. So in here, what At Flight is doing, he's essentially just highlighting the glaring hypocrisy of what Stephen A. Smith talks about. Yeah, my life is personal, but yet again, you're always speaking out about how, in first person, reminding people of your status, of how much money, how well off you are, and how you were an athlete in college, and so on and so forth. So when you bring that type of attention to yourself, you're only allowing people to just look deeper into what you're saying to see if what you're saying is actually accurate or inaccurate. So At Flight has a very good point here. He also says that the athletes, because of their high profile, are open season to criticism because it's part of the business. Well, that goes both ways. Stephen A. Smith, I would say, is a high profile person. He may not be a high profile athlete, but he's a high profile, personality on television as a sports pundit on ESPN for First Take and with his personal podcast that he has. So he's basically indicting himself. He's throwing himself by his same judgment that he's casting upon others, justifying his means of actually, critiquing other people. He's actually placing himself in the same category to be critiqued. So I don't even know why he was even upset. So this guy At Flight is making great, great, great points here. Okay, he goes on to say, he too is also open to that exact same level of scrutiny. I just said that, and At Flight says the same thing. All Whitlock did was show the viewers, people like us who watched it, how Stephen A. literally contradicted and lied about his basketball prowess himself by simply raising a simple question after providing all of the actual video where Stephen A. Smith made these remarks himself, which turns out to be a lie because as much as he called Whitlock names in his childish meltdown, not one time did he ever answer or address the actual question of playing basketball at his college. And that was the whole thing. He took the focus and the attention away from the book and went on a rant. So everyone was just talking about the profanity rant, but people forget it was about the book initially. It was about the content in the book. Essentially, simply his basketball college career. And he never addressed that. All right. Okay. I'm going to read another comment from At Flight. He also added another comment. Okay. He says, furthermore, all of the swearing and name calling and name dropping was an hour distraction from dealing with writing a fictional story about his storied basketball career. So when he says an hour, he means not hour, but hour, like the clock hour. He essentially is saying that Stephen A. Smith wasted our time with an hour of this distracting messages. Okay, Whitlock provided videos of this guy on his promotional tour as he sat down and gave great detail of how good a hooper he was to his captive audience. I swear, his basketball playing days sounded like competitors like MJ and Kobe. When he described being overlooked by high school ball player, and how he played this much bigger guy who clearly was that dude on the court, but according to Stephen A., he had his moment to play him after, calling him out, etc. Man, this guy At Flight is making some great points here, man. Just to bust his ASS on the basketball court, and then walk off the court like MJ or Kobe because he too took it personal. That was legendary fiction. For any true basketball fans and students of the game itself, I'm a bit younger than both Whitlock and Smith, but I remember the era of basketball and the level of back then. I hate when people look at junior/community college as if it is the worst level of academically or athletically otherwise. There is no shame at all for attending junior college. Let me state that first. Now, going back to the level of even high school competition in New York, where Smith claimed to have played, I just want to point out just how hard it is to even play high school basketball at a level where you can then go play at any college level. Most, if not all, have colleges and universities have the best high school players on the team. So now let's take a New York who, I guess he meant to say New Yorker. Let's take a New York who is well known for producing the best guards. Okay, so let's take New York, who's known for producing, the best guards. I'm using this position as an example because Stephen A is 6'1", and that's not even considering he claimed he was around 5'8" or 5'9" in high school, so I can only assume he played the point guard position. With that said, I'm going to give you a few names in which he would have had to compete against. He would have to have competed against, and ironically, I'm sure he has probably interviewed them: Mark Jackson, Rod Strickland, Kenny Anderson, Kenny Smith, or Dwayne the Pearl Washington. These guys all played during the era of Stephen A, give or take a couple of years that would overlap. I'm only providing you the level of high school play only in New York City area during the high school era of Stephen A. Smith. Trust me, there have been more who are lesser known than just as good. So knowing this, how it is possible to walk on a high school team, then a junior college team, and finally a university there, he played one game. Then he said he played no games and still was able to keep a scholarship at a school which has been documented as not being able to provide the basic level scholarships. This simple logic does not require a ton of thinking. Don't you think if a famous journalist sits down, especially with New York area guys like Mark Jackson, would at minimum share their thoughts on playing against each other or telling both of their experiences playing in high school, considering I believe he said they were from the same area in New York City? That's very ironic, don't you think? Man, at Flight, he crushed this. He crushed this. He simply just annihilated this. The first comment that he made, and then when he added on, it just makes sense, y'all. I mean, let's just be quite frank here. Stephen A. Smith got caught in a lie. He got busted. And because he's very insecure, all right, he does not want to be found out for the true person that he is. So like a baby who's stuck in a corner in timeout, he just starts to yell out and scream out. Therefore, he diverts. He sways the attention. He takes it away from the content of the book, and he makes it personal. So people with lesser thinking minds are now focused on, he cursed him out. He called him a fat bastard. He called him a despicable person. He called him worse than a racist. We're focused on those words that stir up emotions in us. Yet we're not looking at the content. At Flight just broke it down. That's what critical thinkers do. They break things down. And that, to me, says it all. All right, again, tell me what you guys think. I love the comment. Thank you again, At Flight, for your comment. And thank you. If you have not subscribed, that's fine too. If you have subscribed, thank you. And thank you for your contributions to the channel. And thank you for making me a better critical thinker than I was yesterday. All right, guys, leave a comment below. Tell me what you guys think. All right, bye.